Ricardo, I think I might need to get where you are. Like right there.
Please go. This first.
I see a wind sign. Yeah, it's a CUNY class. You went to no, not my class, but Richard Ye asked when, and she had it. That's why I got the lunch. Not that I don't want to take the comments.
Okay.
My nephew's school is PTA as a fundraiser. You could like online something like a dog.
Yeah, we brought some, what do you call it, fun dip package. So, wrote the names of his classmates. You have to give everyone.
No, you didn't make him, right?
No, he did it. Hell yeah.
No, one of my friends
right.
was saying his daughter had so much homework. She said, Dad, my grandparents. So he wrote out.
Fun dip, yeah. I love fun dip. I just love the steak.
Yeah, like a sugar sour sugar. Feel
Touch your tongue. Yeah. Feels like a crush.
it's not popcorn, it's a drink. Slushy. After the beach.
That might spike your sugar level, so.
Yeah. You has to go.
Do we have lunch? We've been out here saying. It's so frustrating.
Good morning. I'm Adrienne Holder. I'm the Chief Attorney for the Civil Practice of the Legal Aid Society. Minutes ago, the Legal Aid Society filed a class action lawsuit against Mayor Adams and the city administration over their failure to implement the common sense legislation enacted by the City Council to expand and improve CityPHEPS. This lawsuit was filed in New York State Supreme Court on behalf of 4 named plaintiffs and a class of housing insecure New Yorkers who should now be eligible for CityPHEPS but who are still prohibited from accessing the rental assistance subsidy. These are some of our most vulnerable neighbors, low-income New Yorkers on the verge of homelessness or languishing in shelters, most of them residing in communities of color. Our named plaintiffs include a grandmother who is a cancer survivor, who currently in shelter with her 12-year-old grandson. You'll hear more from her shortly. An 86-year-old widow who lost her husband from COVID and consequently lost her rental subsidy that kept them in their home. She does not have any income and now faces imminent eviction. Also a single mother and her 11-year-old daughter who do not qualify for CityPHEPS given the city's narrow definition and who also face eviction. And another senior who is permanently disabled from a debilitating bus accident and now is at the risk of eviction and homelessness. All of these plaintiffs have one thing in common. If Mayor Adams would implement the laws duly enacted by the City Council, their housing needs would be met. No more sleepless nights in shelters, no more trips back and forth to housing court, and no more harassing calls from landlords and management companies demanding and threatening eviction. Our litigation seeks to full implementation of these laws, including Local Law 99 of 2023, Local Law 100 of 2023, Local Law 101 of 2023, and Local Law 102 of 2023. CityPHEPS was created to address the enormous and dire need to expand rental assistance citywide to New Yorkers in need. However, for years, there remain a number of issues with the program that hampered its success in helping homeless households exit shelter and for marginally housed New Yorkers to avoid eviction. The City Council, well aware of these issues, is doing the work they were elected to perform. Rightfully, they set out to fix these laws and they enacted the much-needed packages of new laws. Mayor Adams, on many occasions, frequently touts that his administration follows the law. Earlier this month, he stated that that was a rule of his. Well, his own rule sounds pretty fluid. The law is clear, and the New York City Charter requires city agencies to enforce and implement all measures enacted into law, including those enacted by a council override. New York City's affordable housing crisis shows no signs of abating. And I'm sure this emergency in some way, shape, or form has touched everyone here today. By enacting this legislation package, the City Council has taken decisive action to take this crisis head on. And we are proud to stand with them today to announce this litigation and to secure the outcome that their constituents and our clients need and deserve. I now want to introduce you to Marie Vincent, one of the main plaintiffs in this lawsuit.
Good morning. My name is Marie Vincent. I'm a cancer survivor, a caretaker for my 12-year-old grandson, and I currently live in a homeless shelter. I've been in the shelter since May of 2023, after I was forced from my home when a new landlord purchased the building and evicted all the tenants. I work nights doing housekeeping at a local hospital, but because my income is above the level for CityPHEPS, I do not qualify for the housing voucher. But I would be qualified if Mayor Adams would follow the law, and I would be able to secure a new apartment. I feel like the current CityPHEPS program is not designed to help working people such as myself. I feel punished for making a living, even though I still struggle to pay rent, purchase groceries, etc. I even tried reducing my hours at work to become eligible for CityPHEPS, but I still couldn't be qualified and made it life even more difficult. My situation is not unique. There are many New Yorkers out there in similar positions who are struggling and who would be better off if these laws were implemented. Mayor Adams, you ran a campaign promising to help working people like me, but I realize now it was all lip service. Promises made, promises broken. I'm proud to serve as a named plaintiff in this lawsuit. I thank the City Council, the Legal Aid Society for standing up for working for New Yorkers like myself. Thank you. And furthermore, my grandson, I've been promising him that we wouldn't be in this situation for much longer. I told him we would be out by October. It is now almost his 13th birthday, and he's still in this current situation. It's extremely hard on him. It's extremely hard on a lot of our families for children who are going through this. Well, I ask that for the mayor to implement the law.
Next up, we have one of our great leaders, Council Member Ayala.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to start by thanking the Legal Aid Society for taking action on behalf of New Yorkers who have been negatively impacted by the administration's failure to comply with these critical laws. This lawsuit against the administration accomplishes two important things that we need to highlight. It places New Yorkers who are struggling in need of housing stability back at the center of the conversation. They are the CityPHEPS reform laws are aimed at helping and supporting. I want to use this opportunity to shine a light on these four brave individuals who have made the difficult decision to come forward. Maria, Susan, Mary, and Carolina all come from different backgrounds and have varying reasons to be eligible for CityPHEPS vouchers under the law. But the administration's failure to act has put all four women under the threat of eviction and chronic homelessness. Mary and Susan are elders who have lived in their homes for decades. They live on fixed incomes and have made it difficult to pay their rent and are now facing the eviction proceedings. Under the laws effective last month, they would have the option to access CityPHEPS vouchers to remain in their homes if the administration was following the law. What kind of message does it send to the rest of our city that our government is okay with looking the other way and denying help that should be available under the law as our older adults face evictions? Susan and Mary's experiences are stark reminders about how the administration's decisions to ignore the law has real-life consequences. Mary and Susan should be living comfortably in their homes, but instead they are fighting for their right to remain housed. It is a disgrace. As someone who lives in shelter in the shelter system with my own young children, I know firsthand that it can be a challenging, uncertain, and scary place. If it were not for my access to rental assistance as a mother years ago, I would not be here speaking in front of you today. I would not have had the stability to work, feed my kids, ensure that they could learn and grow, and be standing here before you as Deputy Speaker of the City. The irony is that these laws are in place to keep Carolina and her 11-year-old daughter in their home. They can help support Maria with exiting the shelter system, yet once again, this administration is refusing to do what is right and simply follow the law. Our housing and affordability crisis is pervasive and impacts all New Yorkers, especially older adults and families with children. As a matter of effective public policy and moral leadership, the administration should have implemented these laws and began to take steps to ensure that these New Yorkers standing before you could not be in this situation. But the administration has chosen to ignore its responsibility and must now answer to these reports. Again, I want to thank Maria, Mary, Susan, and Carolina, and all of the other impacted for their strength and integrity. None of them should have to be standing here today to get help, the help that they are eligible for under the law. I also want to thank the Legal Aid Society for helping these women in their efforts to seek relief. Lastly, I want to reaffirm my full support for all efforts that offer New Yorkers the opportunity to exit shelters for housing and stay in their homes under local laws 99, 100, 101, and 100. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership and also for your story, your personal story. Next up, Councilmember Kaban.
Thank you. Good morning. It's very, very simple. If it saves lives, it is worth doing. And you are hearing the stories of just a few New Yorkers who would benefit from this CityPHEPS package being properly implemented. But you need to take those stories and multiply them by thousands and thousands. Right now, we have a mayor who has prided himself on saying he is the mayor of public safety. He is a law-abiding, law and order mayor. And it's very, very simple. This is not a suggestion of implementation. It's not a recommendation. It is the law of the city and must be implemented. We know that the number one issue for all New Yorkers across the city is housing. Housing, housing, housing. We also know the biggest impactor, the keys to increasing public safety and public health in our city is stable, clean, long-term housing. We know that this is the morally imperative thing to do. We also know it is the fiscally responsible thing to do. And I gotta tell you, anybody who is still counting on the mayor's math, y'all gotta let that go. Because that has been debunked time and time again. whether it is a single man budget dance of cuts and reversals, or the fear mongering saying we can't afford this. We're saying that we can't afford to house these women's children. We're saying we can't afford to keep them off the street. It's bull, and we're not going to stand for it. We have to get this done. And so I want to say thank you to everybody involved in lawsuits. It takes a lot of courage to come out with your stories and engage in these legal battles and these legal fights. I want to say thank you to the Legal Aid Society. You make me proud every day to be a former legal aid attorney myself. And thank you to my colleagues. And just send the message very, very clear, not just to the New Yorkers who count on and desperately need and deserve stable housing and that this is the path for them, but to make clear to the mayor and the administration that we will not budge. We are ready to put everything into this fight because the lives of working class New Yorkers depend on it. The future of our city depends on it. Tackling this housing crisis depends on it. So we're ready for a fight, and I don't know that they know what kind of fight we will bring. So just again, thank you for all.
Thank you. To be clear, and what everyone is saying is that we know that we live in unprecedented times. Rising homelessness and shelter entry, an affordability crisis that is unprecedented that the city is witnessing, as well as rising evictions through Housing Corp. There is a leader here with us today who knows about that way too well. It's about preservation of keeping people in their homes as well as giving people an opportunity to have affordability to getting into new homes. And that is Councilmember Sanchez. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, thank you to the Legal Aid Society for standing with these brave women and fighting for all of the New Yorkers who need a place to call home and deserve a place to call home, warm, stable, and healthy. New York's intersecting crises of rising evictions, record homelessness, and housing unaffordability, the conditions that led this New York City Council to pass and then override the mayor's veto on these bills, they are only worsening. The most recent housing vacancy survey that came out just last week shows that the city's vacancy rate is the lowest on record since the 1960s. 90% of low-income New Yorkers are severely rent burdened, and low-income people of color are leaving our city in record numbers. As we chart the path forward, we cannot pick and choose our interventions. When you get up in the morning and you get dressed, you don't say, I'm only gonna wear shoes today, forget the rest. The same applies to our housing crisis. We must increase supply to accommodate our city's needed growth. We must invest in upgrades so our buildings do not fall down, as 1915 Billingsley fell in my own district. And we must increase New Yorkers' ability to afford our homes so that we can stay and contribute to the vibrancy of our city. The council's expansion of the CityPHEPS program so that more New Yorkers can afford their homes and avoid evictions is a critical component of solving the city's housing crisis. In sponsoring these bills, and thank you to our speaker and the leadership of this council for allowing me to be the chair of the New York City Council's Committee on Housing and Buildings, I'm proud to support these efforts to not relent on behalf of low-income and working-class New Yorkers. The mayor has a responsibility to follow the law, and in this case, it's for the good of low-income and working-class New Yorkers whose government housing policies have failed for decades. Happy Valentine's Day, New Yorkers. We're here. We love you, and we're fighting for you. Muy breve en español. Hoy estamos aquí apoyando y dándole seguimiento a una ley que el Consejo Municipal ha pasado aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York. Nosotros como Consejo Municipal, como la parte del gobierno que es igual a el alcalde, hemos pasado leyes y esas leyes se tienen que respetar. Nosotros tenemos una crisis de viviendas aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York y es una crisis que se tiene que enfrentar con todo. Cuando uno se despierta en la mañana, no dice, oh, hoy solamente me voy a poner los zapatos. No, uno se viste con toda la ropa que se necesita para enfrentar el clima que hay afuera. De igual forma, nosotros necesitamos confrontar la crisis de vivienda con todo lo necesario. Tenemos que construir más para que haya nuevos hogares para los nuevos neoyorquinos. Tenemos que preservar para que los edificios no se caigan, como se cayó uno en mi distrito, en el 1915 de Billings. Y claro, necesitamos ayudar a los neoyorquinos, los trabajadores, los de ingreso bajo. Necesitamos asegurar que ellos puedan pagar su renta y quedarse estables en sus hogares. Entonces, hoy el Consejo Municipal se para con Legal Society para decir que no, que vamos a seguir luchando por los neoyorquinos. Feliz Día de San Valentín, lo queremos y seguimos luchando por ustedes.
And we also have Christine Quinn, Executive Director of WIN. Christine?
I first want to thank Ms. Vincent for being with us. She had to go to work. Ms. Vincent resides in one of WIN's shelters, and listen to her story. She's a cancer survivor who's raising her grandson. She has found and lost 6 apartments because she makes a little too much to qualify for a CityPHEPS voucher. What does that mean? That means she stays night after night after night in a WIN shelter. What does that mean? It means the city gets paid $180 a night. If this bill was implemented, if the law was implemented, it would cost $72 a night for her to live in one of those 6 permanent apartments. These bills will not cost the city money. In fact, the study we did at WIN shows that they will save the city hundreds of millions of dollars. One of the challenges in breaking the cycle of homelessness is that people leave shelter and then they return to shelter because challenges arise. People who leave shelter with a housing voucher are 0.3% likely to return to shelter. That is statistically insignificant, 0.3. If you leave shelter without a voucher, you are 16% likely to return to shelter. So we have a moment here where there's a package of legislation which could help break the cycle of homelessness. It was heard, it was passed, it was vetoed, and the veto was overridden. It's a package of legislation that can save money. It's a package of legislation that can help children get out of shelter. The average length of stay in shelter is about a year. The average age of a child in shelter is 4 years old. A year is an enormous part of a 4-year-old's life. So you have to ask yourself, why won't the mayor implement these laws? The deputy speaker, Councilmember Caban, Councilmember Sanchez, their colleagues, they did the right thing. I don't know why, but I do know that not implementing these laws hurts New Yorkers. Not implementing these laws costs taxpayers money. Not implementing these laws cause children to suffer more trauma. So if you're a mayor who wants to get stuff done, why don't you want to save taxpayer money? Why don't you want to put people in permanent housing? Why don't you want to move children to a stable situation? There's no good answer to that. So before we have to go through months and months of court trials and all of those machinations, the mayor should, as we saw him do in the budget, change his position and implement these laws immediately, saving hundreds of millions of dollars before the council has to go into budget negotiations. And remember, the face of this isn't court papers. The face of this isn't the statistics and the numbers I just rattled off. The face of this is Marie Vincent's 12-year-old grandson who has been in shelter for years because she couldn't afford 6 apartments she found, because she doesn't qualify for a voucher, because she works too much. Thank you.
We'll take your questions. Please raise your hand. Emma?
Yeah, I was hoping that legally could talk a little bit more about the legal arguments here, the laws being invoked, and the strategy that you're putting forward in the lawsuit.
And our lawsuit is very simple. It's what we call a mandamus to compel. And all we say is the council passed laws, the mayor vetoed the laws, the council overrode those vetoes. These are laws. They are not discretionary. The mayor has to obey them, like the rest of us have to obey laws.
Question for Deputy Speaker Ayala. Is the council planning to join the suit? Is the council going to take its own legal action?
The council still pursuing its options, and they're going to be submitting to support the Victoria Society and the plaintiffs of this issue.
Next question.
I have a question about the legal argument. Is there a reason you use the class action lawsuit versus just saying that they're in need of the law?
So we have a number of clients that we come across that are in these situations, whether they're facing eviction or whether they're in shelter. So while we have 4 plaintiffs that represent the class, there are a number of people that are affected, and we want to make sure that they're included in any relief that we get from the courts.
To be clear, it's not about this. It's just about the for liberty. It's about all the people in New York City who qualify for these vouchers and aren't.
Yesterday, the mayor's argument against this legislation was that inventory is too low, the housing inventory, therefore you need to build more, so I want to give you a response to that. And the mayor also implied that there could be the potential for abuse on these vouchers. He said, someone gets a rent letter, now they're eligible for a voucher. That's what he said. So he implied that there could be some abuse. So I'm hoping you can address those 2 things.
Her nice. First, do we need more affordable housing? 100%. Is there enough housing stock out there? No. But there is enough housing stock out there that Ms. Vincent found 6 apartments off of NYC Connect and lost them because she doesn't qualify for a voucher. Aside from that, if you look at the month-to-month number, the number of apartments that are getting rented using the CityPHEPS voucher has been going up over the past year. So 2 things that sound contradictory can be true. We need more affordable housing, and there is a stock out there that can be found for people exiting shelter. The process of getting a CityPHEPS voucher is close to a proctoral exam. It is thorough to the absurd. There is no evidence that there is any abuse. There is mounting evidence that people who should qualify for these vouchers don't get their vouchers. There is a lot of evidence that these vouchers, which last 90 days, expire because of it's a different issue, but the process being so laborious. So that there's abuse is just the typical fallback that politicians have used for decades when there is a good social service policy in front of them that for whatever unexplainable reason they don't want to implement.
Can I add?
Let me also add that our clients.
Go ahead.
Our clients are 3 of our plaintiffs are rent-regulated tenants have apartments, very low-rent apartments, but their income is too low for them to afford it. So where is the fraud in our client who's on Social Security disability, right? The federal government has found she's disabled. She lives in a rent-regulated apartment. Her rent is about $1,000, and she can't afford that. And all we're saying is with a voucher, she can stay in her apartment that she already has.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add is that, I mean, it's almost laughable, but when you have folks who are trying to get vouchers currently coming into our district offices to get them, it is a hellish process. They're coming in time and time again. We're on the phone, in communications with agencies for hours over an hour. Sometimes they're having to try to take off work to get that stuff done. And we know that this happens. Oh, this is I want to point out that the mayor's tactic is a classic right-wing Republican talking point. This is what we hear from Republicans who disdain social services and access to public goods, right? And there is, like was mentioned, no evidence. In fact, it has been debunked that a lot of the social services, all of the social services that governments, municipal governments particularly, afford to New Yorkers in need, or to folks in need, are people who need them, not people who are taking advantage of a system or defrauding a system. It's just ridiculous.
And the existing policy was that in order to qualify, you needed to be in shelter. What we're seeing is if you have an apartment already and you're having difficulty affording that apartment and you would otherwise qualify if you were in shelter, then why make you go through all of that? Why pay 3 and 4 times the amount that it would take to just subsidize that person, keep them in place? There's no competition here, and it's the most cost-efficient way of keeping people housed. And I think that that's the biggest point here. I think that there's been a lot of pushback in terms of who would qualify because of this perception that people would make themselves in need of this voucher. And I want to remind folks that most of these people, like the plaintiff that we just heard from is a working mother, right? She's employed. She's not making enough to pay rent, but she's making too much to qualify for a voucher. So there are issues within the system that we need to rectify, and that is our job as government leaders, is to look at where the deficiencies lie and to rectify them. And I think that this set of bills did that. And so now it's up to the mayor to implement.
We'll take a few more. Right. So, is there any fast tracking here? Since this is a law that's on the books, or is this something that we're going to expect to be dragged out for months, possibly years? And for Deputy Speaker, why is the council joining now? It would seem like putting increased pressure on the mayor could at least bring him to the table a little bit quicker, so this would get resolved in weeks, maybe months.
So we brought in Article 78 to mandate this. Sorry, we brought in Article 78 to mandate this to compel. It's a summary proceeding. It's supposed to go quickly. That's why we brought it by ownership clause. We are hoping to have a quick resolution to this issue.
Yeah, I don't think that this is why we didn't, we haven't decided yet. We're still exploring our options, but obviously we believe strongly that the plaintiffs that filed the suit need to be front and center on this conversation, and I think that that's what we see kind of play out today. But nothing is off the table at this point.
All right, 2 more questions, Emma.
Yeah, so the mayor instituted an illegality defense, so like saying that he feels like the laws as passed were not legally sound and like maybe not something to defend them. So what's your answer to that?
Our perspective passage of the laws is sound, well within the boundaries of the charter and city law, such regards to act as required to did. So look forward to defending our positions and advancing the interests of
If I could just add, there's precedent for city council to take action on the PHEPS voucher. In the last few months of the Blasio administration, the then city council, under the leadership of Chair Levin, passed legislation increasing the amount of the PHEPS voucher, which Blasio didn't sign, but it went into law. So it's added to their cases that precedent. This has been done before, and no one intervened to say it was illegal.
Liz, thank you.
My question is for you, Steve. So, Dr. Blasio, he didn't veto, so we didn't see this kind of, lawsuits. But actually, I remember we did. So I want to ask you, when there is that kind of legal tension between the council, or legal actions between the council and the mayor, how does that feed into the general relationship between the mayor and the speaker?
You're right. This is not my first legal rodeo, so to speak. It depends on who the speaker is and who the mayor is. And I'm not going to speak for Mayor Adams or Speaker Adams. That's how they work. A lot of the time when Mayor Bloomberg and I disagreed, and when I was speaker, that city council vetoed the most bills ever of any city council. We were able to put that there and then work on other issues here. But, you know, tensions do get inflamed, but your job is to get stuff done, as Mayor Allen would say, so you find a way to work around it, but the two individuals in this case will have to speak for themselves.
Chris, for either the legal aid attorneys or Deputy City Attorney, the mayor has shown obviously that he doesn't want to shorten these laws. Why do you have more faith that he would abide by any court order requiring him to implement the law since he hasn't implemented it even after the law?
I would be very surprised if the mayor
What type of action?
I can't respond.
All right, last question.
No, I mean, it's the same question. Yeah.
All right. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
All right.